In a world where kingdoms fall and stars still remember names, this song was forged from magic memory and the dream that refused to die. Welcome to a tale where wonder still breathes. This is the story he held her hands like glass and she learned to be brave, created by Sus Pakampara. If this tale stirred something in you, a memory, a dream, or a truth, our Ko-fi, Amazon, and Patreon links are in the description. Support helps us keep writing for you and the ones you hold dear. Introductory song. O love that hides in quiet glass, behind a smile too soft to last, I see you trembling through the light, a breath, a wish too shy for flight. You fold your hands like folded wings, afraid of storms, of songs, of strings. But here I stand, not sword, not flame, just a name that longs to call your name. And if mirrors slide and windows swept, if every vow we've made was kept, then let me be the one who stays, the hush between your yesterdays. Let others come with crowns and steel. I bring a song, I bring what's real. No banners raised, no kingdoms claimed, just the way you say my name. It's a single touch, a gentle thread, a heart still beating where you fled. Oh, glass may break but stars are born when fragile things are not forsworn. I'll hold your hands like morning dew, like falling leaves, like skies turn blue. No braver act than being still, than loving you without the will. So take this song, though flawed and slight, it's made of dusk, of breath of night. And if you fall, fall into me, the only place you're meant to be. The court had known Jess as a prince carved of iron, warrior, conqueror, the kind of man whose name marched ahead of him like banners in the wind. His name was etched into maps and whispered at the edge of every bonfire tale. Songs of him were thunder, verses about him written with drums, not lutes. And yet, when he first crossed the palace gardens where Wheein sat alone, the world heard no clash of steel, no blare of horns. Instead, there was only the hush of strings, a melody soft as twilight and steady as breath. He came not as a prince, but as a bard. The brashness of his legend was stripped away like armor at the foot of a shrine. In its place, gentleness. Wheein, daughter of a line etched in duty and legacy, had long carried the kind of fear that no one dared name. She wore grace like a crown and silence like a veil. The mirrors in her chamber never told who she was, only who she was expected to be. Princess, bride, and treaty. None of those titles made her heart beat any louder. She had known suitors with fire in their eyes and kingdoms on their tongues, men who clutched her hands too tight, as if strength was love and possession was affection. So she learned to draw back, to fold her voice into teacups, to let others write her story while she memorized the lines. But Jess, he found her beneath a willow that dropped like a keeper of secrets. And he did not ask for anything. He simply sat at a respectful distance and began to sing, not loudly, but as if the air itself needed comforting. His voice was unpolished, raw at the edges, but honest, and in that honesty, she heard her name as if for the first time. He returned the next evening and the next, never dressed as royalty, never announcing himself, only music and only warmth, a soft clink of his goblet on the stones when he sipped between the verses, a laugh like bells that escaped her mouth before she could stifle it. One night she dared to speak. Why do you always sing to the dark? Because sometimes the dark listens more carefully, he said, and because sometimes the one meant to hear it is hiding in it. It was not long after that he reached for her hand, not as a prince claiming what was his, but as a man offering what was fragile. His fingers wrapped around hers like a vow, so deliberate and so reverent. She flinched, not in fear, but in recognition. No one had ever touched her like that. Not like she was glass, not like she mattered. The motif of glass haunted her after that. She saw it in the mirror, where her own eyes blinked back uncertainly. She saw it on the window panes of her chamber, where rain streaked in hesitant rivers like tears the sky didn't know how to shed. In the crystal goblets served at royal dinners, she traced her fingers around the rim and thought of how easily even the beautiful could shatter. One night, long after curfew and protocol, she slipped out of her chamber. The halls were quiet, save for the wind brushing against the castle's old bones. She pulled the cloak around her, nothing too fine, and followed the sound of music, not to the court, but beyond it, past the walls, into the village where real life lived. And there he was, not as a prince, not even as a bard. Just sitting on a worn stone ledge, surrounded by villagers who did not know his face or care for his crown. Children sat at his feet, their eyes wide. A baker offered him bread. An old woman clutched his arm, where she laughed and Jess. He gave each one a moment. A glance, a smile, no airs, no pretense. Just a warmth that made the world lean closer. Wheein stood hidden behind the curtain of a nearby tree, tears rising before she could stop them. He was loved, not for his title and not for his victories, but for his tenderness. And the tenderness he gave her was not an act, it was who he chose to be. She returned to the palace before anyone could notice. Her cloak wet with dew, her fingers cold, but her heart no longer frightened. The next morning, she met Yongsun in the solarium. The older woman poured tea, her every motion thoughtful. Yongsun's presence was a sunlight steadying itself across the floor. "You're quiet," Yongsun said, not unkindly. Wheein hesitated. "Do you ever wonder if you'll break being this soft in a world that is sharp?" Yong gave her a long, knowing look, then reached out and lightly touched Wheein's hand. "Yes, all the time. But love isn't armor. It's choosing to remain whole even when you're scared you'll shatter." Later, Byul found her in the garden, balancing pebbles along the ledge of a fountain. The moon hung low, mirrored in the rippling water. "Yong tells me you're thinking too much," Byul said, plopping beside her like the moon had pulled her down with it. "Don't," she grinned, but there was steel beneath her mischief. "Love's not a trap. It's a door you open when you're ready. We're not here to bind you. You choose us, and we're lucky if you do." Wheein stared down at her reflection in the moonlit pool, her face blurring at the surface for the first time. It didn't look like a stranger. Jess asked for her hand not long after. This time, she placed her palms in his without trembling. "I break easily," she whispered. He smiled and said, "Then I will carry you like crystal. Not because you're weak, but because you're rare." And so she chose him, chose the warmth of his fingers, chose the fierce affection of Byul and the steady grace of Yongsun, chose a life not dedicated by duty, but composed like a ballad. They wed beneath the same willow tree, where their story had begun. Raindrops tapped glass on the nearby window panes of the palace chapel, echoing the rhythm of her heart. And when Jess lifted her veil, he did not kiss her like a conqueror claiming a prize, but as a bard still reverent before a miracle. Years would pass, and still, on quiet nights, when the world hushed down to its smallest breath, Wheein would lie beside him, their fingers entwined, and whisper to the hush, "You still hold my hands like they're made of glass." And Jess, half asleep, would hum the melody she first heard beneath the willow, then murmur, "Because in you I found the light that turns glass into stars." And somewhere in the distance, it was said that the song still played, and if you listened closely, you could almost hear it, a lullaby wrapped in a bow, a prayer dancing beneath raindrops, a girl once afraid of breaking, learning at last how to shine. The epilogue. The festival came quiet in at first, petals tossed from unseen balconies, torches lit with reverence rather than spectacle. In the great hall of Jess's kingdom, under vaults carved with old songs and constellations, the people gathered to celebrate not war, not peace, not conquest, but love. And there in the center of it all stood Wheein. Gone was the silk veil of hesitation, the mirrored glance searching for escape. She wore no crown, only starlight stitched into her sleeves and her hands. The same hands once afraid to hold, now opened like wings. Jess stood nearby, laughing gently, his short black hair tousled by the breeze from the open balcony. He watched her not like the man who possessed her, but like a poet watching his words come to life. His smile was quiet, like the final note of a song played only for her. And then came Yongsun, her long black hair cascading like ink down gold-threaded robes, eyes full of pride so radiant it could have melted the glass. She extended her hand and said, "Come, let the stars remember us tonight." Then Byul entered, her stride more rhythm than step, a rebel in every glance of the word, but soft where it mattered, especially with Wheein. Together the three women danced. At first it was simple, a twirl, a step, a half lap barely held in. But then the music rose like the wind behind the fire, and Wheein danced like she was finally in love and alive. She spun, not for attention, not for tradition, but for herself, for the girl who once feared to break, and now knew that everything unbreakable had once been fragile. Laughter bloomed from the circle like petals in spring. Byul carried and grabbed Yongsun's waist and dipped her dramatically. Yongsun retaliated with a flourish of her skirt. Wheein joined in, fearless now, her steps echoing across marble and memory alike. "I used to think that I was made of glass," she whispered, pausing only for a moment beside Jess. He looked up at her as if she'd hung the moon herself. "And now?" he asked. She smiled. "Now I know I'm made of everything that holds it together." And so they danced, a bard's prince, a sun-robed queen, a warrior star, and the song herself. Brave, not because she never feared, but because she learned that to be loved by the brave is to become brave yourself. The night spun onward, a constellation of firelight and joy, and somewhere between the echoes of their laughter and the hush of dawn a song played, softly and sweetly, as if love itself had never stopped singing. I make these tales and bits of chaos daily for my beloved Byul. If they made you laugh, feel, or even just shake your head in disbelief, hit like, share it with a friend, and subscribe. Let's keep this wild, heartfelt ride going.